relationship. I actually have a quote on my wall from Jordan Peterson. I'm not a big quote guy. I have one quote on my wall and it says hyper-competence. I actually struggle to pronounce one of these words. Hyper-competence and the capacity for genuine reciprocity. How do you pronounce that word?
Reciprocity.
Reciprocity makes you unstoppable. And when I think of that quote with regards in this industry, I don't mean to lick your ass, but like there's very few people I think that understand that word that I can't pronounce, in terms of like when you talk about networking a lot, but I think people think networking is just like saying hello to someone and, oh, I know this person now, but actually it needs to be this like mutually beneficial relationship where we like you get something and I get something. Now that it doesn't always have to be that. I don't think it doesn't have to start there, but it kind of has to develop into that. And I think you understand that better than probably anyone else I know in the industry. On top of being very competent, excuse me, at your job and knowing your stuff. And I think there's very few people that have both of those skills. And like he says, it makes you unstoppable. I really think like that's something that I'm good bit behind you on that side of things, on the networking side. But like, so I think
I've failed at that though. I have failed at that in my career. I remember I went for a job in the championship. So this was at the end of my internship year at Wasps. So, I think I had 3 part-time jobs that year. I ended up borrowing like $5,000 off my dad. I say borrow, I haven't paid him back yet.
That's how borrowing from parents works.
Yeah, I probably should. Well, actually, no, let me say, I lent him a big chunk of money when I moved to America. So yeah.
Did he pay you back?
He did.
Well,
yeah. And so, I mean, that's a tough year, 40 hours a week, unpaid, and you're kind of getting to the end. Those kind of years are tough because it's a big roll of the dice. It's like, hey, if this doesn't come off, you've just spent a year working for free and you have nothing to show for it. Mm-hmm. And that kind of like, I think they were of the opinion, well, there's no real jobs at Wasps that he can do and actually have a living wage off. So they have this partnership with London Scottish, go to London Scottish, and I think they booted their strength coach, funnily enough, with like 2 or 3 weeks before preseason. They called up Wasps, and it's like, okay, well, Keir's going to go fill in for 2 weeks there. I think they had like 2 weeks, a little break, and then they were going to start the preseason or whatever. And I went there, and I was told by the head of academy, if you do not mess this up, this is your job. And I went there. Did I do a good job? Me, 10 years removed? No. Did I do a better job than the last guy? The feedback from the players was yes. They were excited. They're like, oh, they literally said on the Friday before when I interviewed, see you on Monday. And of course, I didn't get the job. And that was as a result of the guy that got hired. Was he better than me? Maybe. Was he also the best man of the head coach at his wedding? Absolutely, he was. Were they like this? Did they go to the same university? Yes, they did. Then they offered me, well, you can assist this guy and stay on. And because I'm me, well, I'm like, well, okay, then. Well, it was half, maybe I'll learn from this guy, and maybe fuck you, I'm going to prove to you on a daily basis that you've made a mistake. And of course, within a few weeks, it was obvious to me that I was maybe not on the receiving end of the most objective feedback. Mm-hmm. And funnily enough, that head coach, Dan House, he ended up working with Housey. And he told Housey in private, he goes, oh, one of the biggest regrets of my career is that I didn't hire Keir. And he never told me to my face, but hearing that, I'm like, fuck, I knew it. So when you're that desperate and you need the money, and earlier in my career, I wore a lot of stuff like that on my sleeve. It really upset me. Mm-hmm. I thought, never again will I be in that position. And of course, I didn't act on it for years, but I remember years previous being at university, and there was a lecturer saying, read this book, Never Eat Alone by Keith Ferrazzi. So literally the week that I didn't get that job, bought the book, read it, and I said, never again will I be the guy with the technical ability, but not the connections. The idea that you have to pick one or the other is a false dichotomy. It's not either or, it's both and. Yeah. And the way that you mentioned, people enter into networking of like, oh, pleased to meet you, add them on LinkedIn, whatever. It's not that. The way that I've tried to do it is, especially as I get older, is depth, not breadth. And the second thing is, every interaction you are trying to enter into is, what can I do for this person? However limited your resources, your ability, your knowledge, your skill is, what can I do for this person? And the worst case scenario for that interaction is that you've done something for somebody else and you get to feel good about it. Mm-hmm. It's like you have to be planting hundreds of seeds to wait to see, well, which one's going to turn into the oak tree.
Yeah, I think, because I don't really even know how we connected. You just kind of somehow like kind of weaseled your way in somewhere. Just wrote a message, something like, I actually think it was that I was selling a webinar when COVID first hit. I sold a how to treat online clients webinar, and I was I was just speaking about it on my story, and I said how I'm going to show you how I've gotten to this stage without ever spending a penny on marketing or advertising, and you just wrote, you should have in a DM or something like that. And then we just chatted for about 10 minutes or 20 minutes, and you were just giving me some tips there on
it's like driving in a 20 when you can drive at a 30. Mm-hmm. And the speed limit's 30. It's like, I can't remember if I mentioned it to you at the time, but the book Lean Startup by Eric Ries does a much better job of explaining that than me. Yeah. I admire that about you and how you've done your business, because it should be really encouraging when you can have that kind of growth and money organically. To me, I'm running towards you with a can full of gasoline.
Yeah. And I'm not against, like, I wasn't against sales or marketing, but I was marketing that webinar by saying that I haven't advertised or spent money. Why do you think people are so against marketing and paying money for, especially maybe it's not just especially in the industry, but I have a theory on it, but I'd like to hear, why do you think, like, people seem to get a bit butthurt when they see you posting or anyone posting ads? Why is that?
I can't speak to the culture in the Republic of Ireland too much, but certainly in the UK, there's Rachel Guy. Rachel Fox. Now Rachel Guy. I forget. She's changed her name. She's married. She does a lot in the women's space, and she calls it tall poppy syndrome, which is when you start to rise, or you put your hand up, or you verbalize your aspirations. In the UK, you're told to do your time, know your place, all this kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. The extreme opposite end of the spectrum is America. You tell people what you're going to do, and they're like, oh my God, that's awesome. And then they'll try and sell you a product or service to help you do that. So I think there's that. There is this, certainly within professional sport, there's this idea about being dedicated to a craft or dedicated to an organization, and that if you have interests outside of that are financial, you can't possibly be committed enough. Mm-hmm. I'll counter that with a couple of things. One is that you're the CEO of you, and the business that has one customer is run by an idiot, because you're one customer firing away from going out of business. Mm-hmm. So if you have one source of income, you have made your financial future at some point wholly reliant on somebody that would fire you in a heartbeat. So you need to prepare for those realities and work against those realities. The second is, I've talked to a number of friends about, what do you like to do in your spare time? And they'll be like, well, I like to cook, or I like to play the guitar and all this kind of stuff. And I said, what does the school have to say about that? Answer, nothing. Well, what happens if the thing that you like to do in your spare time is to make money? Mm-hmm. none of your fucking business. Do you know what I mean? So this is, we can get into that, but as well. But I think one of the things that really annoys me about certain organizations and schools is that they will dictate how you spend work time, and then not do their side of the bargain, which is to respect when you are not on work time. Mm-hmm. Unless I'm breaking the law, none of your fucking business what I'm doing outside of work.
Yeah. But people don't respect their own time either. Like, people have to learn that lesson very in a hard way, I think.
Well, here's one thing that I spoke to Vernon yesterday. I told you. I wrote it down. He said, they're not paying you for your expertise. They're not paying you for your time. They are paying you to not be at home around your loved ones. Yeah. Once you start to put that value on it, you're like, well, actually, my time is way more valuable.
Yeah. I don't have kids yet. Maybe I will someday. Hopefully I will. But like, I want to be able to drop my kids to school and pick them up every day. Like that's, I heard someone saying that in the past, and that was a big thing for me. No, I don't think there's anything that could take me away from that. Now, some people just have to work like long hours because they don't have the expertise, but like that is not in my future. I hope.
Aspire to that.
Yeah. That's not where I'm hoping to be. What's your structure of your day at the moment? That's something I haven't heard you talk about. Like when you wake up, you have a coffee, what do you do?
Bro, I'm like the most unstructured person. I forget what, basically anytime I've done a personality assessment at like any organization I've been in, this is going to shock you. I'm an extrovert. I thrive in chaos. I figure it out as I go along. And basically, yeah, I literally used to have arguments with an ex about this. And she's like, well, what are we going to do about this? I'm like, I don't know, we'll figure it out. Oh my God, you're disrespecting my time. I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm respecting your time as much as I respect my own. I like that Naval Ravikant thing of you work like a lion. Lions do not go out and hunt at medium pace all day long. Mm-hmm. They're going to chill until they get hungry. And then when they're hungry, they're going to fucking work. And I'm like that. Like in training, you're not gonna train the same intensity all year round for the same volume. There are going to be periods where you are going to be miserable drinking cappuccinos because you're working so much, and there's going to be others that are more enjoyable. And I'm probably in one of those miserable phases right now because we're about to drop fundamentals level 2. So I work at night. Typically, I go slow in the morning. I kind of do like errands and stuff. Then I'll work kind of like lunchtime to mid-afternoon. I'll take a break in the evening to do jiu-jitsu, and then I'll work again in the evening. So it's not uncommon for me to work until like 1 o'clock in the morning. Mm-hmm. And then, yeah, when I'm feeling it, I'll do a lot of work. When I'm not feeling it, I'll just shit on Fernando and JJ.
Yeah, we're very similar in that regard. Yeah. Like I don't have a structure for anything, which it holds me back in some ways, but it's good in other ways, I think. But do you then try and surround yourself with people who are like more structured? Like I don't know what Fernando is like, or other people that you work with, but like, are you like obviously running Strength Coach Network? Yeah, you have to have your presentations and all that planned months in advance. You have your emails, you have your sales funnels and all of that stuff. Like how do you keep on top then of all the little different things that are going on?
This is the problem. My first boss, Ian Taplin, the most insightful thing he ever said to me is your greatest strength becomes your greatest weakness. So at that time it was, well, you have a great sense of humor and you're friendly and you'll say funny shit. Taken to the extreme, it makes you look unprofessional. People won't take you seriously, all that kind of stuff. And he was right. When you thrive in chaos and lack of structure, and we'll figure it out, there's benefits to it, but then those same qualities can let you down when it comes to running, it sounds grandiose, running a business or building a business. Because the thing about businesses is until you can sell it to somebody else, you don't have a business, you own a job. Mm-hmm. And in order to sell it to somebody else, you have to be able to teach somebody else how to do it. And in order to do that, you have to have systems. And in order to have systems, you have to take what is implicit and make it explicit and standardizable. That is where things fall down. So even with like crazy successful CEOs, you see it, you have like the startup CEO, and then typically what happens is it gets to a certain size, and then they say, okay, bring the adults in, we're going to now have a growth CEO. Google, for example, right? So again, one of the big mistakes that I've made in my career, I was not ready or willing enough to spend money early on in marketing. And I got over that marketing thing about 7-8 years ago. Then it was hiring, because when you run your own business, it's because you're the best person in the world at doing your job. And well, of course, you're going to know more than everyone else. And it's like, well, I'm going to do a 10 out of 10. And why would I delegate to a guy that's going to do an 8 out of 10? Mm-hmm. But 5 guys doing 8 out of 10 are going to outproduce you every single day of the week. So you have to get over your ego and be willing to delegate stuff and to put the time in. The thing about teaching people is it takes way more time on the front end than it takes you to do that job. But when you multiply that task by how many times you do it per day, per week, per month, per year, it's a huge saving. And my best friend growing up in school, he's now a CEO at this company in London, like digital marketing company. And what he said to me is, he goes, my job is to think. You cannot think until you've freed yourself up and you don't actually have anything to do. And that's where the delegation comes in. So I try to delegate to other people what I'm not good at. I also try to delegate to people that I hate to do because it's not going to get my best effort. And then I try and make sure that I'm working on the business, not in the business.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a business physical therapy business coach called Paul Goff. I don't know if you've ever heard of him, but he's a big coach, but he says every time you solve a problem, it just creates another problem in business, where which is a good thing, obviously, but it's exactly what you're saying, where like you suddenly, right, my first problem is I want to get enough business, or like if you're a physio, I want to get 40 clients a week in the door. And then I get that. Now what do? I have to hire someone.
Are you on holiday?
Yeah. And then it just keeps going and going and going. There's another problem. And we've definitely faced that in our business. Like it's a good thing, but I kind of stepped over the hiring someone threshold. And now we have a few people working for us and stuff like that. But that was such a block for me. That was so hard. But actually,
the challenge is as well is so many people hire in their own image. You see it all the time in college football. They're all fucking clones of one another.
Yeah.
One is they want to behave, if I behave like this guy, I'm going to get his pay, blah, blah, blah. But then they also hire in their own image. And it's like, I think the more self-aware you can be about what your shortcomings are and what you're not good at and what you don't like to do, you actually need to go out and hire in the opposite direction for that. Mm-hmm. And we used to joke, like we had this, like at William and Mary, we had this crazy mix. I used to kid, quorum. I was like, oh, we're like the odd couple. You're the Texas evangelical Christian conservative. I'm the loudmouth European liberal atheist. Ha ha ha. We had Ray, Ray's from Boston, 50 years old, black dude, basketball environment. We got Scott from the Midwest. He's like quite demonstrative. We got Tony, who we used to joke he was a serial killer. He used to put up fucking Ted Bundy quotes on his pinboard. And then we had, tall Alex. He's a fucking weirdo as well. We had quite a wide mix. And I think that it's a good sign. If you have clones running around, I think you're setting yourself up for failure, because that's when you get the echo chamber.
Yeah. And
you become really heavily skewed as a department or as an organization in one direction, and that you need balance. I definitely did that. I definitely tried to be open, but the question I wanted to ask you with regards to that is, like, especially with what you said about the sales thing earlier, and selling the business. So my problem then is, obviously my business is David Grey Rehab, and even rugby strength coach, I suppose, is not too bad, because technically someone else could be rugby strength coach, but they're not. They're never going to be. Why do you think Strength Coach Network exists?
Exactly. So like, so if you were giving me advice a couple of years ago on that whole branding thing, you would then have told me probably not to be David Grey Rehab.
Correct.
Yeah, but it does have its advantages in the short term. Do you think?
Are you building for the short term or for the long term?
Who knows? Flying by the seat of my pants. But like,
interestingly enough, Poliquin, do you know why? Do you remember Poliquin back in the day became Strength Sensei?
Yeah, but that's
You
because
know
his
why?
wife took it, wasn't it?
Yeah. So I want to say his wife had equity in the business, as did a bunch of other people. He and his wife got divorced, and she got the board on her side, and they're like, okay, Charles Poliquin, you're now fired from Poliquin Performance. And they continued to market and do business effectively in his name without him being a part of the business. But that's the only time that I've heard that happen.
Yeah. Hopefully that won't happen to me.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's an interesting one. But I think that there's a lot of people doing that, like where they have their own name and stuff like that. But I think if you get the business to the point, and I think you might run into this, maybe not, I'm actually probably wrong, but if you get the business to the point where it's so good that someone wants to buy it for a lot of money, that means you have got your processes right. That means you have got your people in the right place. And that means that you probably don't want to sell the business at that stage because it's making enough money for you where you're not actually involved in the day-to-day running.
It depends. It's like real estate. Like, do you want cash flow or do you want to flip? Because if you look at, like, let's say you have a rental property, you can put 100 grand into it. This happened. Put 100 grand into it, and you double the cash flow. You increase the cash flow 50%. So now you're making X thousand a year more. You're going to get your money back and make. It's going to take you 10 years to get that money back, but you're pocketing money every single month. Or you can just sell today and get a big check and then move on to the next thing and do something bigger. So I guess it depends on what aspirations you have. And then also long term for the business, maybe it has to get to a point where somebody with way deeper pockets than you has the money required to take it to the next level.
Yeah.
So I guess it depends.
Yeah, you've definitely done a good job with Strength Coach Network. I've noticed that you're not as much of the face of the company over the last probably 6 months or so, maybe longer, as you were in the past. Like, I don't associate you as strongly with that now as I did in the past.
And that was one of the things where I had to force myself to do it. So I think for example, the Strength Coach Network Instagram, just over a year ago, I think is when I hired JJ. So he's really good at that social media stuff. Like, anything on Strength Coach Network Instagram is nothing to do with me. It's all JJ. And I was like, this is like weaning myself off. I'm not going to touch it at all. If we can grow it. Okay. I've demonstrated to myself that the world's not going to end if I delegate this to somebody. And he's grown it to 15,000 people in just over a year with no ads.
Yeah.
He writes every single email that goes out from Strength Coach Network. He does all of the cheat sheets. I don't do any of the scheduling of webinars. There's very little of the day-to-day that I actually do now. I think my role now is more kind of like, which direction are we going in? Who do we want to bring into the network? One of the things that I realized is creating your own content is a curse, because to be producer and presenter and all this kind of stuff, they're two competing jobs. So eventually it becomes self-defeating. So I'll put this to you. Who is the biggest bookseller in the USA by their ability to just shift numbers of books?
No idea.
Oprah Winfrey.
Okay.
How many books has Oprah Winfrey written?
None. One.
Yeah. If she gives you the stamp of approval,
yeah,
you are a millionaire.
Off it goes. Yeah.
It used to be you would sit on her couch and talk about your book. You're a millionaire.
Yeah.
That's because she built an audience and effectively became like a curator for her audience.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's where our value has started to move in that direction. Is, I could go get all this shit for free off the internet. Well, okay, good luck. Yeah. Because it's going to take you so much time to get to the good stuff. You're going to have the critical faculties to discern from all that kind of stuff. and you're not going to know, well, if I'm dealing with this person's a snake or this person's genuine. So we're trying to be like a curator for strength coaches and a filter. Like, hey, we did that stuff for you. Here's the people that you need to pay attention to. Here's the people that can help you. All this kind of stuff.
Yeah, I trust Keir. I trust Strength Coach Network to bring the right person to me, and now I can have some kind of trust in that information that's there.
Yeah, and it's me making those decisions as opposed to writing the presentations.
Yeah, I like it, man. What business model wise, like we've chatted a bit about this in the past as well, like templates. Well, not as much since you've had your new courses out, but so templates like I do and you do.
That was a conscious decision to stop.
Yeah, versus a course like that. So one-off payment versus a membership site. Can you talk a little bit maybe about the pros and cons of each, or where your mind is at that at the moment?
Well, I mean, the model, we're going back now. Like, I remember getting pissed in a bar in Sydney 6 or 7 years ago. I was talking to a guy who he'd made a fortune, an Australian guy made a fortune. He was living in Austin, and his business was selling other businesses. And I remember talking to him, and he basically described, I don't know if you're familiar with Ryan Dice. He's like one of the big time American.
Yeah, I love him. He's really good.
Yeah. And talked about like sales funnels, how businesses are supposed to be built. And you basically, they have to know you exist. You have to build likability, trust, trustability, is that a word? Authority. You have to provide sufficient value that they'll give you money in exchange for a product or service. And it has to be low enough level that it's not a big deal to them, but you've identified who's going to be most receptive to your key product or service down the line. So it's called a tripwire. Mm-hmm. And you have an intermediate product, so you can continue to build that relationship. And then eventually you get down to the bottom of the sales funnel and you have the key product or offering. And then hopefully things snowball from there. They become a long-term customer, you get referrals, all this kind of thing, and then you kind of feed the flywheel. Sounds easy, very, very hard to do. That's great. But if you look at even the biggest companies in the world, they all go towards recurring revenue. Mm-hmm. Because the value per customer over time is way higher in recurring revenue. So even Apple now have Apple TV, Apple Music. Uber now have this like recurring revenue platform. Netflix, New York Times, Amazon. All of these businesses are shifting to a recurring model because a slightly lower price point repeated over years and years and years and years and years is a huge lifetime value. And the thing about recurring models is if you are doing templates, every time you're asking somebody to make a buying decision, you are having to interrupt them, which people don't like. You are having to persuade them, and then you're having to have fulfillment. So it's buy once, sell once, buy once, sell once, or sell once, buy once. With a subscription model, you sell once and they buy many, many, many times. And it's the nature of subscription businesses that you're satisfied. So if that's the minimum level of satisfaction that you have to remain a customer, it's going to start like this and it's going to tail off over time. So your ability to engage people and keep delivering value will extend that into the future and push up that value. But the total area under that curve, lifetime value, is way higher in a revenue model. And that's the reason that I was like, right, no more products, because it's fool's gold. It's almost like the hedonic treadmill of like, release a product, 20, 30 grand. Oh my God, that was awesome. Oh shit, the money's running out. Release a new product. Mm-hmm. And you're not building anything that can be sold or that you can step away from. Because when you stop developing the products, you stop getting paid. Mm-hmm. With a subscription model, hopefully, especially once you start to build your onboarding processes and you have staff managing it. And the thing is, when you have a forum, people are producing the content for you. It's just a much more sustainable business model. And that's why I stopped. I think the last product I did was like last January. And I said in my head, this is the last time I'm doing this. Yeah. Also, a lot harder to steal. The amount of people that must have got your stuff for free, got my stuff for free. I think it just makes sense to ring fence what you're doing a little bit more.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then the courses, this is one conversation I had with JJ. If you look at our membership platform, you look at everything that's available in terms of discussions, lectures, resources, everything like that. And then you look at our average monthly cost or the cost of a year and how long people remain members for. On paper, it's a much more valuable prospect for people to become members of Strength Coach Network than it is to sign up for Strength Coach Network fundamentals. And that thing flies off the shelves. We have to do some work to persuade people as to the value of being a member. We put out the course, it does nuts, you know.
You know why that is, or why I think it is, because there's a defined start and end point in it. Yes. And it's like with a membership site, it's like, oh, I probably should watch a lecture next month, and I never do. So then I just cancel it because I'm almost guilty that I'm not using it.
But you just set your calendar for 2 years from now and say, oh, I'm going to leave Strength Coach Network in 2 years. And you've got access to way more content, you know?
Yeah.
It's just, I think they're complementary. I'll say this. It's a lot more self-directed in terms of our membership platform, in the we need to do a better job with it in terms of how we structure, because whenever you have a like membership content platform, people must be trained to consume it.
Yeah.
That's the tough thing, because you're like, oh, I built all this shit and people aren't using it and they're leaving. And it's like, well, no, it's on you. What does Netflix do? Netflix has that algorithm like, hey, watch this, watch this, watch this, watch this. Are you still watching? Same thing in terms of having a subscription platform is you have to do a much better job of training people, and it can be a little bit disorganized. Whereas with courses, it's more of a structured curriculum. Like you said, clear beginning, clear end. There's a logical sequence to things. You're literally being spoon fed. And I think people maybe want to pay a bit more of a premium to just sit there and be told, right, now do this, now do this, now do this. So I think it's not one or the other, it's complementary.
Yeah, yeah. And ideally it is, you're looking to get the same people to get both. So I think with I think with the lifetime, when you start to understand lifetime value of a customer, that's when, one, you can't argue with advertising anymore, paying money to get people in the door. If I spend €200 today, or dollars or whatever, and on just content marketing on an Instagram ad, and 100 people follow me, and 4 people buy a program, then it's paid for that. 4 of those 200 people at some stage buy a program. And I'm not saying this for you, but I'm saying this for the people that are listening. So let's say that has paid for itself then, that advertising, and people will argue then and say, well, you haven't made anything. You've just got back the money that you paid out. But actually I have made something. I now have 4 customers. So you're not actually trying to get a sale. You're trying to get a customer. Yeah. And that's why the membership is so important, because you now have a customer, not just a sale that you've sold in the template, on a template one.
Yeah. Jeff Bezos, back in the days, like, you can do whatever you want to acquire a customer, just make it cost less than $100. Because he's like, I think, and he was right, I think the lifetime value of somebody to Amazon in the future is going to be more than $100. And of course he was right. It's probably like $100 a year or a month or whatever. And, you know, that also ties in, having that mindset ties into you as a coach or as a business owner. Like, I finally bit the bullet this year and hired myself a business coach. And this guy's costing me $6,000 a year. But the changes that are put in place, I'll give you an example. Within a month, our reach on, I did my Instagram as a test and the Strength Coach Network Instagram, 400% reach increase in a month. How much is that worth? That's worth more than $600 a month.
Yeah.
We made other changes that saved over $30,000 a year in staffing. And then we're continuing to, like, it's, you spend to get back.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the same with education. That's the same, like, coaches some people just don't want to do a course or whatever. And it's like, if you go to a workshop and you learn one thing, like, I was always of that. I'm not trying to say I'm great, but I was always of that mindset where if I get one thing from this that I can take back, and I can help one client with that one thing, they're going to tell 10 other people, and it's paid for itself, easily paid for itself.
The cost is what's it going to cost you to miss this?
Yeah. So that's that changes your mindset, definitely. I actually had a client say to me yesterday, he's a trader, he's an investment guy, a big money guy, and he said to me that it was online. He's in New York. He said that I made a multi-million-dollar mistake by releasing my templates. And I said, look, I would have done it anyway, because like I now have 6, 7, probably 8,000 people on my email list.
Yeah.
And I can still sell to them, and they still need to, well, a lot of them still want to know the why behind all that stuff and things like that. But I don't disagree with him in some ways of what he was saying, you know.
Yours needs to be an app.
An app, yeah, I know. But I was chatting to people about that, and it was going to be very, very expensive.
Spend money, make money, brother.
I'm arguing with myself here. What do you think is the biggest? This might be a little bit. You don't have to answer this. What's the biggest? What do you think is there anything that keeps you up at night? What's like with regards to business or life? But is there anything you're really trying to mitigate against? I'll give you an example. For me, it's like if my Instagram got deleted tomorrow, I'd be kind of fucked. So is there anything in your mind that you are trying to really mitigate against?
Business? No, because
when you have your members, don't you? Like you're not too bad there.
Well, I'll whilst we're talking about this, your email list is the most valuable business asset that you possess. I would say never forget that, because here's the thing, like one change in the algorithm, you're fucked. My Instagram, he says something offensive, take it down, you're fucked. The email list cannot be taken away from you. You have permission to contact them. And again, anytime that you want to reach people on Instagram, either the algorithm's going to know what you're trying to do and it's going to throttle it, or you're going to be paying for the privilege, and it's one interruption, one payment, one interruption, one payment. With email, it's pay, i.e. you pay for the service and you have the email address, and then you have unlimited permission to contact them as long as it's a good communication. Weirdly enough, I don't have a ton of stress when it comes to business, mostly because what keeps me awake at night is like existential bullshit about what happens when we die. Why am I here? Is my son going to like me when I grow up? Am I being a good parent?
When you grow up?
Oh, sorry.
When he grows up?
Both. That is like my default in life is just, it's a bad thing and a good thing. My worries are like a lot of the time at night are just like business pales in comparison. Like, fuck it. Who gives a fuck? If one day the lights go out and that's it, and you're going to be dead forever, who gives a fuck about, what if this goes wrong? What if this goes wrong? What does this person think of me? Who gives a fuck?
Yeah. But on the flip side, like that exact attitude is what makes you make sure that try to make sure that your business is successful, because you like, who gives a fuck type of thing also applies to, why would I work for someone else that doesn't care about me and waste half of my life, when what really matters is just enjoying every day and making sure that the people close to me are.
That was the thing about, if you speak to most smart people in American collegiate strength and conditioning, especially on the football side, and be like, that person's a moron, that person's a moron, that person's a moron, that guy's a fucking idiot, I can't believe that guy did that. It's like, right, why are you going up and sucking his dick at a conference and be like, can I have a job?
Yeah. If
you disrespect that person so much for being a fucking moron, why would you hitch your wagon to that person and be like, I'm, my professional and financial future is hitched to this guy? Absolutely not. And it's like, ask yourself, am I happy? How would I rank this person's ability to think critically and to define what it is I do and to evaluate how well I do it? The answer is almost universally no. And be like, right, okay, that's the person that you've just hitched your wagon to. How do you feel? Mm-hmm. Scary.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. If they can't evaluate what you're doing, how are they going to say if you're doing a good job or not? And you're not on the same page from the beginning then.
Yeah, which is why I'm reading Deep Work by Cal Newport right now.
Yeah, good book.
It's like, the harder it becomes to define and evaluate your contribution in objective terms, the more the appearance of busyness becomes a currency in your organization.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. If you're kind of known for your thoughts on reverse engineering the sport and all of that stuff. And I said before we started that I didn't really want to talk about training, because I think you have much more important things to say in all of the stuff that we've spoken about so far. And I would love to talk to you about training, but it's not as important. If you're going to reverse engineer your career, and I'll leave it up to you whether you want to choose, okay, I want to be an NFL strength coach, or I want to own my own business. But if you're talking to someone who's listening, let's presume they just came out of college or whatever, they have the necessary qualifications. What would you do, or who would you talk to, or how would you even approach that, or what way would you think about that?
Well, me now.
Let's presume Strength Coach Network doesn't exist. Yeah. So you can't just say sign up for Strength Coach Network, even though that's what they should.
Was it a mistake, or was it just a reflection of where I was at in my thinking? But I think was I kind of like instinctively trying to reverse engineer things 13, 14 years ago? Maybe, but kind of like I had to learn mistakes along the way. But I would say the mistake that I made then that I would not make now is that I was reverse engineering a career rather than reverse engineering a life.
Yeah.
And there is, to be a great success on the field and in the gym, and a failure in life is not a neutral outcome. You are a failure. That's one mistake that I made. And I would really think carefully about what kind of a life am I building? And then I think what it is, it's the same thing with athletes. It's like, right, what does elite look like? What does the environment demand? And then you can look at like the most successful individuals in our field. And again, I figured this out. Are they universally despised and unpopular? Absolutely not. Everyone in the building loves them. Do they have extremely tight relationships with very influential people in the building? There are some strength coaches in this field that could kick a hooker to death in the middle of the field, but as long as the head coach likes them, they're going to keep a job. And I've worked with a couple of them. The very, very best ones have fantastic theoretical and more importantly, applied knowledge, i.e. they have a proven track record of getting results with elite athletes in the real world. They have global perspective. They're good at helping people solve their problems. They typically have a supporting spouse. They're okay with moving around and eating a lot of shit. They might have again, either they're an extrovert and they have a demonstrative personality, or they do a very good impression of one. There are introverts in our field, but they typically have to put the face on when they're in a team environment, especially with men. Those you can start to build out the kind of picture of what elite looks like. I like the Ray Dalio thing of character, abilities, and skills. Mm-hmm. Character never changes. You are what you are. Good luck. Ability is fairly consistent over time, and that's like your kind of like intellectual and intellectual qualities, and then the skill is the expression of those qualities in like a specific context. Then you can start to look at, well, what underpins those. So is there variables underneath those that really drive those things? And then what's my limiting factor? What's the one, what's the one thing that I can attack right now that's probably going to have the biggest impact on my total sum development of all of those qualities? And then how do I come up with a plan to get rid of that shit as soon as possible and start finding the next problem? Like you said, it's like you cut the head off the snake, another one appears, right? Next problem. But I think it's like, I kind of tease, but knowing what to attack is just as valuable as how hard you attack it. Yeah. And I remember I was talking to an assistant of mine. There was this female softball player at a college in the US, and they put up a video, and she was, trap bar deadlifting in the 400s, high handles, trap bar deadlifting in the 400s. And I said to Scott, I'm like, oh, congratulations, body weight and a half trap bar deadlift. Do you think this chick's limiting factor right now is that she doesn't trap bar deadlift enough? No. And of course, the kiss of death with working with female athletes as a male is the second you tell them to lose weight, you're insensitive, even if it's a rational thing. It's like, don't be the career version of that. Don't be well-connected, well-liked, great network, and you're a fucking knuckle dragger with no technical ability and be like, oh, I need to work on my network more. No, you need to work on not being a fucking moron.
Yeah.
My problem, one of my many problems in 2011, I was technically good or better than other people, but I had a shit network. Nobody liked me, knew me, or trusted me to a sufficient degree to hire me at that point. And I had to work on that.
Yeah. Do you know Scott Adams? He's like a Trump supporter, or he was a Trump supporter anyway, but
he's just a contrarian.
But he talks about being in just like what you're saying about having a ton of different skills. I'm not like the best at any one of those things. I'm not. He's a comic.
I'm certainly not.
Yeah, and I'm the same. I'm definitely not. Like, he's like just being the top 25% of a ton of different skills, and you're going to be better than most of the people. So like, technically, obviously, but that's what I talk when you get this question as well as me. What book should I read? It's like, what are you trying to learn? What's the thing that you need to be better at right now?
What exercise should I do?
Yeah. So what are you trying to get better at? So yeah, I like when he speaks about that, because as well as that, when people are like, how should I get to know like some of the stuff that I know? I'm not saying I know anything, but people ask me that question, and like, if you just break down the body and say, even if you wanted to be a good physio or something like that, right? I'm going to break down the body. Who's the best shoulder person out there? Okay, maybe Eric Cressy. Okay, I'm going to learn and like try and understand 70-80% of what he talks about, the most important stuff that he talks about. Who's the best sprint coach? Okay, Dan Paff. I'm going to start to learn some of that stuff and just take it one by one. And suddenly you break it down, you reverse engineer it, you break it down into chunks, and you've gotten 10 people there that you can learn a lot. And now you are easily in the top 25% of people who know anything about the body.
And you blink and then a decade's gone by.
yeah. Well, it's going to take time. Yeah. But one that people who never seem to make it, who never seem to get anywhere really, is their public speaking. Their communication is poor, and that's the biggest thing. Like, if you talk to a coach, you're not going to get someone to come on Strength Coach Network if they can't speak well. It doesn't matter how technically good they are. Simple as that. So that I think that's probably the most important skill, because they can't communicate their ideas.
Yeah. Well, Warren Buffett supposedly said that the best investment he ever made was a Dale Carnegie public speaking course. Yeah. So yeah, Buffett seems to know a thing or two. What helped me in that regard was coaching in a foreign language.
Really?
Yeah, just because it forces,
Wait, in Japan?
No, Spanish.
I was like, do you speak Japanese?
I do speak very, very bad Japanese, but I'm fluent in Spanish now. But, I did a tiny bit in China too. But it's one of those things where when you are working, it's probably different being a physio, but when you're working in your own language, you're able to speak without thinking about what it is you're saying. So there's a lot of junk volume, right?
Yeah.
You're not thinking about exactly what it is you're saying. When you're doing it in a foreign language, you're having to think very precisely about what it is you're trying to say to get it out. And you know that if there's junk volume in there, one, it's going to come out too late, and two, it's going to come out like bullshit. So you have to think, you have to be economical in your words, and you have to get the maximum coaching effect for the input of your words. And I feel like if you can do that in a foreign language, it only benefits you in your native language. And towards the end, I would speak publicly. I was doing like media shit at the end in Spanish, and the confidence that you draw from that, it's nerve-wracking. I've done a live radio interview in Spanish in Rosario, and it fucked me up. if you can do that, you can speak publicly in your own, especially on a topic area that you're comfortable. Yeah.
You know what else helps with that? That'll take less time for people listening who will never learn a language, is talking on Instagram.
Yeah.
That helped me so much. It was like, I want to say 3 years ago, I was doing like a video on, here's an exercise, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I could record the video and it'd take me 10 minutes to say it. I was like, no, I need to get this down to 60 seconds.
Yeah.
It helped me get way more clear with what I wanted to say about things.
Brevity is the soul of wit.
Say again?
Brevity is the soul of wit.
Yeah. So yeah, that's an interesting one. Japan are actually playing in Ireland this weekend.
They're going to get their pants pulled down?
I don't know. I don't know. I haven't seen much rugby recently, actually, but I'm going to go Michael Leach, for anyone who's
don't hurt your back dropping that name there, bro.
But no, I was about to say you introduced us, so thank you for that. But he actually texted me saying, just out of nowhere, do you want tickets this weekend to this game? And I was like, yep.
He's a good dude, man. He's one of the grumpiest men on earth. He's a fucking good dude, Leachy.
Yeah, he's a legend. But okay, I think we're nearly at the end. I've got chat for the day, but what I asked Joel Smith on the last podcast, so obviously he has a big podcast, and I said, you are going to be stranded on a desert island for a week, let's say. What 3 coaches would you take with you for that you've had on the podcast to learn from? Now, I'm going to leave it up to you. You don't have to choose coaches. So what 3 people would you?
Wouldn't.
Yeah, you probably wouldn't. That's what I mean. So who would you take with you? What problems are you trying to solve?
I mean, am I trying to get off the island? Am I just trying to accept my fate?
No, or maybe it's better if you just have a dinner with 3. No, I think a dinner is too short.
Yeah,
you don't have to get off the island. I'll collect you on a boat in a week's time. No, I want to be there as well.
Terrence, Terrence is a fucking good dude. Wait, do I have to know them, or have to be like?
No, you don't have to know them.
Oh shit! Okay, can I expand it beyond coaches?
Oh yeah. Do whatever you want.
John Danaher, because of jiu-jitsu. He's like one of the. Watch John Danaher on the Lex Friedman podcast. That is one of the smartest sport coaches in the world. I would chain most sport coaches to a table to watch that podcast. I'm going to send you a link. Okay. So, jiu-jitsu, PhD in philosophy as well. Interesting discussions. Peter Thiel. He's one of the most influential authors I've ever read, even though he's not an author. He's, PayPal, Palantir, Facebook, all that bullshit. He's also, remember how he said, surround yourself with people that aren't like you? This guy is a German-born, gay, evangelical Christian tech mogul. And let me think. I'm going to pick all men just because, fuck women. Let me think. One more man. Marcus Aurelius.
Okay. We're bringing people back from the dead now as well. What did you, because I read 0 to 1 after you recommended it. I think I had actually tried to read it years ago and I just didn't get through it, but obviously I didn't have a business then. So what did you take from that? What's the biggest thing you think you learned from that? He's a smart guy.
He's a devious fucker too. Have you seen about how he dodged all of his tax? Have you seen that?
No.
So Roth IRA accounts in America, you pay tax on the way in, but not on the way out, right? So if you read, there's a book that he actually funded the reprinting of it. It's called The Sovereign Individual. If you work out not paying tax, the sum, and you assume growth each year, the sums of wealth that the state is able to take away from you in the form of tax is like astronomical. He read this book and he's like, okay, the rules are any company that you do not have a controlling share in is not, can go into a Roth IRA account. So at the time, PayPal, he's like, 49.9% of the company's mine. All right. I think he paid like $20 of tax putting it into this account. 3 years later, it's worth $1 billion. But the original assets in that account can be rolled over. So he sold the stock for $1 billion, bought the Facebook shit, set up his company, bought Palantir. He's rolled it over into $20 billion that can't be taxed. He has the biggest Roth IRA account in the world now.
Oh, man.
Devious.
Yeah.
Devious.
Yeah.
Anyway, that book is Competition is for Losers.
Yep.
Innovation, or technology versus globalization, scale, and I think those are just the three things. It's the way that I would sum it up is, again, it fits my personality. I'm not trying to be the Navy. We're the Pirates. Strength Coach Network is the Pirates. William and Mary, we're not the Navy, we're the Pirates. Like we used to film our boys training to Girls Just Want to Have Fun by Cyndi Lauper, and then upload the shit so our opponents could see it and just to fuck with it. Yeah. And I think that he's a contrarian. So if you read him, if you read Howard Marks, in investing, they talk about the price being baked in. If I know what you know, we both bid up the price until there's no value left to capture. Value is what's it worth versus what does it cost. And if you look at, this is the thing, competition is very American and it's a good thing and blah, blah, blah. Do you know how much each of the major airlines makes per person per flight?
No.
$1.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's because of competition. Facebook makes several $100s per member of the site because there is no competition. It's monopoly. So I think that's one thing, is like you realize like competition is for losers. You actually should have a monopoly, and then you have to be innovative to create something that isn't there, because if you're creating what somebody else has already created, you're in competition.
Yeah. That's why, going back to the brand thing earlier, which is my kind of argument in some ways against someone who says having David Grey Rehab is a stupid idea, is like there's no other competition. So that's,
for sure.
But look, again, how do you get out of that? I don't know.
Well, my dearly departed grandmother, one of her favorite Bible verses she used to quote to me was St. Paul's letter to the Corinthians, which is, when I was a child, I thought and spoke as a child, and now I'm a man, it's time to put childish things aside. So what helps you get to one side and what's a good thing, eventually it's time to put it aside, or you stay at the sides that you're content to be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right, man. Thank you very much. Is there anything I should have asked you?
Bro. Go sign up for Strength Coach Network.
Yeah. Is that the only plug you want to give? You can do whatever you want now.
Bro, that's it.
No, I recommend it too. I always recommend it and stuff. So like the physiotherapy, rehab, strength training worlds are just collided, and it's kind of all the same thing now.
For the better.
Yeah, for the better. Exactly, for the better. And aside from post-op rehab, everything else is pretty much the same. And which it should be, I think. And like, so where else for people in the rehab world, coaches to go and learn from some of the best in the world. So and you have a new fundamentals courses coming as well.
Yeah, that's going to be the last Monday of November. We'll drop that, and then we'll probably do an intro price for the first 20 like we did last time. And yeah. Is
there any people on there that you're excited to, any presentations?
Oh man, so we got Cameron Joss, Stephen Jones, Pratik Patel, who just left the Giants last year. He left the Giants just before I left sport. Who else do we have? Zach Decken, rugby strength coach. That was the one where I couldn't find anyone to do that module. Nick DeMarco, TK. Yeah, man, there's a lot of good people in there. Very excited to drop it.
Brilliant. I'm looking forward to it. Well, last question. Who should I interview for the podcast? What do you think? Now, that's like saying what book should I read, but I'm going to ask it anyway.
Do they have to be in sport?
No.
Mark Baker.
Who's Mark Baker?
Guru Anaerobic.
Okay.
Guy's a fucking lunatic. In a good way.
Okay.
It was a clip I did, and he said when they went into the fields and they unshackled the slaves and said, "You're free to go," their reply wasn't, "But I don't have an income stream." And he's like, "If you want to be free, go fucking be free." And you know what? I quit my job after that.
Yeah. So that's like the burn the boats mentality.
Fuck yeah.
I don't know, man. I don't know if I agree. I don't know. Why do you need to burn the boats? Maybe just be smarter with it.
Motivation.
Yeah.
Bro, I know people that have been leaving their jobs for 5 years.
Yeah.
Every time they say it, I'm like, bullshit.
Yeah, but they're not doing nothing about it
That's
anyway.
my mentality, though. That's my mentality.
Yeah, look, I'm the same as you, but I see both sides. Depends if you have a family or not.
True.
And if you have money in the bank. But yeah, all right. Thank you very much, Keir. You're a star, man. I really appreciate it. I definitely could chat all day, but we gotta go. You gotta go do no work for a little while and then one burst and then come out with new products.
Yeah, baby.
All right, brother. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.